Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the world of Victorian etiquette. That particular group possessed certain incredibly eccentric ideas regarding proper behaviour, which would make your most uncomfortable social interactions seem utterly smooth and natural in hindsight. You could lend me a hand with a thumb up or a sub if you're enjoying these stories. Intrigued to know your location, so let a comment mention your coordinates on the planet and what time it is where you currently are. It's always incredible to see people all over the world listening to this content. Anyhow, let us journey back to Victorian England. I promise it's going to be a fascinating journey. So, congratulations. You've recently woken up in London, roughly in the year 1850. Your eyes slowly open to realise you are resting in a slender iron bed frame. Forget the cushioned mattress you're accustomed to. This one is filled with horsehair, a bit prickly, somewhat lumpy. The room is cold, truly freezing. The coal fire that warmed you before bed has burned down to glowing embers, offering just enough light to make out the shapes of the furniture surrounding you. A massive armoire, a washstand with a ceramic basin, a dressing table with a modest mirror. You hear the distant rattling of iron-rimmed carriage wheels over the cobblestones. Outside your walls, a dog barks somewhere along the street. The air smells of coal smoke, always coal smoke in London. It seeps in through every crack, under every door, through every window gap. Mixed with it is the faint scent of bergamot oil from the perfume bottle on your vanity, that strong citrusy fragrance everyone is using these days. The sheets covering you are cotton material, not especially soft, but clean at least. Your nightgown is made of wool flannel, buttoned all the way up to your neck. Heaven forbid anyone should catch sight of your neck or arms while you sleep. That would be a scandal. On the table beside your bed sits a small bell. You reach out your hand and give it a quick shake. Almost immediately you hear footsteps on the staircase. Your maid Mary appears at the door, already fully dressed despite the early hour. "Good morning, miss," she says with a slight dip of her head. "Shall I open the curtains?" Not waiting for your reply, she walks to the window and pulls back heavy velvet drapes, letting in pale grey London morning light. The window pane is streaked with soot from the countless smokestacks, pumping smog into the air. "What would you care to wear today, miss?" Mary asks, approaching the closet and pulling it open to reveal a collection of dresses, each more elaborate than the last. And this is where your intensive study in Victorian social customs begins. Because what you put on, how you speak, how you move, who you talk to, when you engage them, and practically everything else you do today will be governed by the most intricate social system humanity has ever created. The Victorians were essentially living life on the hardest difficulty setting. One wrong move and boom, social disgrace. "You have a calling appointment with Mrs. Hartley at 11, Mary mentions, as she selects a morning dress in a deep blue and then tea with your cousin Emily at 4. These calling appointments are your first lesson in Victorian etiquette. Despite the name, they never take place in the morning. Calling appointments happen between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. I know it's completely nonsensical, but call them afternoon appointments and people will look at you like you've gone utterly mad. Calling appointments last exactly 15 minutes, not 14, not 16, 15. And you had better have a watch to keep track because staying longer is considered highly discourteous. Mary helps you into your clothes, which is a production in itself. First the chemise, essentially a long cotton undershirt, then the stays. Oh my, the stays. Mary wraps it around your waist and starts yanking the laces tighter. You protest, remembering that a proper Victorian lady is supposed to have a waist you can wrap your hands around. "Certainly, miss," Mary replies, pulling harder until you can barely draw a breath. Your ribs shift slightly. Your lungs can only fill about halfway. "This is fashion, dear. Next come the petticoats. 1, 2, 3 of them, each adding a layer of bulk to your lower body. Then the crinoline, a cage-like structure made of metal hoops that causes your skirt to billow out around you like a huge parasol. Finally, The dress goes over everything, with its tight waist and enormous skirt. By the time you're finished, you're wearing about 15 pounds of material. Mary arranges your hair, pulling it back severely from your face and styling it in a neat knot at the base of your skull. No loose strands allowed. Everything contained, everything proper. "Will you be wearing gloves or mitts today, miss?" Mary asks, presenting both options. "Gloves," you reply, recalling that a proper Victorian woman never ever exposes her bare hands in public. Ever. Your hands must remain mysteriously concealed at all times, like some kind of strange hand-based secrecy rule. As Mary assists you with your gloves, you remember another crucial rule. No scent. Queen Victoria herself has decreed that the heavy, musky perfumes of the previous era are vulgar. Instead, you dab a touch of the citrus and bergamot essence on your handkerchief. Enough to smell clean, not enough to imply you're attempting to attract anyone with your scandalous fragrance. Fully dressed, you go downstairs for the morning meal. The house is waking up around you. Servants hurry about, dusting, sweeping, polishing. The cook has been up since 5 o'clock preparing the morning feast. In the dining room, your papa sits at the head of the table, newspaper in hand. Your mamma is at the opposite end, already writing letters. They are both fully dressed because Victorians wouldn't consider showing up at the morning meal in anything resembling casual wear. "Good morning," you say, taking your seat. Your papa lowers his newspaper just enough to nod at you, then raises it again. Open displays of affection, even among family members, are not the Victorian way. No hugs, no kisses on the cheek. The morning meal is substantial. Eggs, bacon, kidneys, toast, porridge. Victorians eat heavily at the morning meal. It is their largest meal of the day. You pick at yours, your stays, making it impossible to consume more than small bites. "Remember, Jane," your mama says, not looking up from her correspondence, "Mrs. Hartley's son has recently become engaged. Be sure to offer your congratulations, but do not inquire about any details of the wedding. That would be intrusive." You nod, making a mental note. This is typical of the invisible guide that governs Victorian society. You must acknowledge major life events but never appear overly interested in them. Curiosity is vulgar. After the morning meal, you have a couple of hours before your calling appointment. You elect to work on your needlework, an appropriately feminine activity. Idle hands are the devil's workshop after all, and a proper Victorian woman is never idle. Embroidery. You settle by the window in the drawing room, stitching a pattern of flowers onto a piece of fabric. Your mama joins you, taking up her own needlework. "I saw Mrs. Fairchild the other day," she mentions casually. "Her son has returned from the university." You keep your gaze on your stitching, even though your heart quickens slightly. Thomas Fairchild. You danced a waltz with him at a ball last season before he left for Oxford. He possessed kind eyes and didn't step on your toes, which puts him ahead of most of the young men you've waltzed with. "How nice," you say, your voice carefully neutral. "She mentioned he inquired about you," your mama continues, watching your reaction closely. You feel your cheeks warming, but keep your expression composed. "Did he? That's very courteous of him." Your mama smiles slightly, pleased with your measured reaction. Showing too much enthusiasm for a young man would be improper. The game of Victorian courtship is all about pretending you're not playing it. At precisely 11:15, you put on your hat, gloves and shawl and depart with your mamma for Mrs. Hartley's residence. You carry a small card case containing your calling cards, tiny pieces of paper with your name printed on them. These are essential to the ritual of calling appointments. Mrs. Hartley lives only a few streets away, but walking too fast would be unladylike. You adopt the proper Victorian lady's pace, short steps, back straight, gaze modestly lowered. Your enormous skirt swings as you move, occasionally threatening to knock over small children or dogs who approach too close. People pass you on the street. Gentlemen raise their hats. You acknowledge them with the faintest nod, never making eye contact with strangers. A gentleman would never speak to a lady he hasn't been officially introduced to, and a lady would absolutely never speak to a strange gentleman. You arrive at Mrs. Hartley's at exactly 11 o'clock. Punctuality is crucial. Arriving early is as bad as arriving late. Both suggest you don't possess enough obligations to fill your day, which would be humiliating. The footman answers the door. You hand him your calling cards, one from you and one from your mamma. He accepts them on a small silver tray and escorts you into the parlour where Mrs. Hartley and her daughter Charlotte are waiting. Everyone bows, no one hugs or kisses cheeks. Physical contact is maintained to an absolute minimum. How kind of you to call, Mrs. Hartley states, gesturing for you to sit. You perch cautiously on a small sofa, mindful of your enormous skirt. Sitting elegantly in a crinoline is a talent. You must balance right on the edge of your seat to accommodate the metal frame around your lower half. We were so pleased to hear your good news, your mamma says to Charlotte, who blushes appropriately. Thank you, Charlotte whispers, eyes lowered. Mr. Edwards is very pleasant. And that's it? That's the sum total of the information you're going to get about Charlotte's engagement. Not what her intended is like, not when the wedding will be, not how they met, or whether she loves him. Those questions would be prying, and Victorians do not pry. The conversation moves on to suitable topics. The weather, cloudy but without rain. Recent sermons at church, inspiring but not too long. And a play you all saw. Well acted but not too extravagant. Everything is described in the most moderate language possible. Strong opinions are for the lower classes. After precisely 15 minutes, your mama gives an almost imperceptible sign. That is your cue. You both stand. It was so lovely to see you, Mrs. Hartley says, also rising. More bows, more courtesies, then you're back outside on the street, calling appointments successfully completed. That went well, your mama states as you walk homeward. Charlotte looked well, didn't she? Quite well, you agree. In Victorian language, well is the highest praise one can give. Back at the house, you have a small midday meal, then spend the afternoon reading an instructive book. Nothing too exciting or romantic, naturally. Stories that stir the emotions are considered potentially dangerous for young women. At 4 o'clock, you have tea with your cousin Emily, who comes to your house. The ceremony is similar to the calling appointment, but slightly less rigid. Since Emily is family, you still maintain perfect posture, still speak in controlled tones about appropriate topics, still avoid anything that might be viewed as gossip. After Emily leaves, you have a couple of hours before the evening meal. You practice the piano for exactly an hour, enough to maintain your skills without suggesting that you have inappropriate aspirations of becoming a professional musician. The evening meal is at 7 o'clock, a relatively casual family dinner since you're not hosting company. Still, you change into a different dress, slightly fancier than your daytime dress, but not as elaborate as a ball gown. Victorians change clothes several times a day, each ensemble precisely suited to the specific social occasion. At the dinner table, conversation is polite but not particularly intimate. Your papa discusses business matters with your brother. Your mama references charitable work she's involved in. You listen carefully, occasionally offering a mild opinion when directly asked. After the evening meal, you all retreat to the parlour. Your brother and papa might have spirits and tobacco in the library, but women don't consume anything stronger than sherry, and they absolutely don't smoke. Instead, you play the piano for the family, or work on your needlework some more. By 10 o'clock, everyone is ready for sleep. Another day of Victorian propriety successfully navigated as Mary helps you undress, removing the layers one by one. You finally feel like you can breathe again when the stays come off. "Will you need anything further, miss?" Mary asks as she helps you into your nightgown. "Nothing, thank you, Mary," you say, settling into bed with a soft sigh of relief. She bows and exits, taking the oil lamp with her. The room descends into darkness, save for the dim glow from the controlled fire in the hearth. You lie there, thinking about the day, All those regulations, all that constraint, it's tiring. But there's also something almost comforting about knowing exactly what is expected of you at every moment. As you drift towards sleep, you wonder what the next day will bring. In this world of strict propriety and hidden emotions, you'll have to navigate a formal dinner party, which means a whole new set of regulations to remember. But that can wait until morning. For now, you allow the distant sounds of the city lull you toward dreams. Your last thought before sleep claims you is of Thomas Fairchild and his gentle eyes. In this world, where so much is restricted and controlled, even the smallest connection feels significant. You wonder if you'll see him soon, and what complicated dance of social rules you'll have to perform if you do. Outside, fog rolls in from the Thames, wrapping the city in its damp embrace. Gas lamps cast hazy circles of light on the stone streets. A carriage passes, wheels rattling. A night watchman calls out the hour. And all through London, behind the proper facades of countless homes, Victorians rest in their beds, bound by their social regulations, even in their dreams. Morning comes with the sound of Mary pulling back your curtains again. The weak winter light barely penetrates the perpetual London mist. Another day of Victorian propriety awaits you. "Good morning, miss," Mary says, placing a cup of hot chocolate on your bedside table. "It's going to be a busy day." You sip the chocolate as Mary lays out your morning dress. Today is truly important. You're attending a formal dinner party at the Fairchilds' residence. Yes, those Fairchilds. Thomas will be there. The shift to morning starts with a flurry of preparations. Your mother insists you practice the pianoforte for 2 hours rather than the typical one. "The Fairchilds might ask you to play," she explains. "Mrs. Fairchild mentioned their new keyboard instrument. It would be a social blunder to decline another Victorian rule to remember. Never turn down a direct invitation to display a talent, but also never seem overly eager to show off. It's a delicate balance. After the midday meal, you take a short walk in the nearby park with your mother. The crisp winter air feels noticeably cleaner than inside most houses, where coal fires fill the rooms with a fine layer of soot. Ladies stroll along the paths, nodding politely to acquaintances. Gentlemen lift their hats as they pass. "Remember," your mother says quietly as you walk, "at the evening meal, your place will be determined by rank. Do not look surprised by your position, whatever it may be." You agree. The Victorian dinner table is a battlefield of social standing. The most important male guest sits to the right of the hostess. The most important female guest sits to the right of the host. Everyone else is seated in decreasing order of social importance. Being placed near the end of the table is a clear statement about your status back home. Arrangements for the evening begin in earnest. A formal dinner party requires your best presentation. Mary draws a bath for you, adding a few drops of rose oil to the water. The bathing room is cold. Despite the small fire burning in the grate, you bathe quickly, shivering as you step out onto the chilly floor. Then the dressing begins. Tonight requires full formal dress. Your stays are laced even tighter than usual. Your hooped petticoat is wider. Your dress is pale blue silk with delicate lace trim. The neckline is lower than your daytime dress, exposing your collarbones and a hint of shoulder, the maximum amount of skin a respectable unmarried woman can show. Your hair is styled in an elaborate way, with tiny silk flowers pinned among the ringlets. A slight dusting of rice powder on your face gives you the fashionable pale look. No colour though, only actresses and women of questionable reputation wear obvious makeup. "You look lovely, miss," Mary says, stepping back to admire her work. You barely recognise yourself in the mirror. You look exactly as a proper Victorian young woman should. Controlled, poised, graceful. Your waist impossibly tiny, your skirt absurdly large. Fashion is suffering, but fashion must be obeyed. Your father has hired a carriage to take you to the Fairchilds. It's a cold evening and walking would ruin your carefully styled appearance. Also, arriving in a carriage rather than on foot demonstrates your family's prosperity. The carriage stops outside a large townhouse on one of London's most fashionable streets. Lights blaze from every window. A servant in livery opens the carriage door and helps you alight. Inside, the house is warm and bright. Gaslighting, the newest modern convenience, illuminates the entry hall. A maid accepts your cloak, revealing your formal attire. The butler announces your family as you enter the drawing room. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson and Miss Jane Wilson. All eyes turn. You feel your cheeks flush, but keep your expression calm as you perform your curtsy to Mr. and Mrs. Fairchild. And there, standing next to his mother, is Thomas. He is taller than you remember, his formal wear emphasizing his broad shoulders. He bows perfectly. Not too low, which would look subservient, but not too shallow, which would be rude. "Miss Wilson," he says, his voice deeper than you recall. "How pleasant to see you again." "How agreeable to encounter you again, Mr. Fairchild," you reply, your tone carefully measured. "I trust Oxford suits you." The smallest of smiles crosses his features. It does. "Thank you, though London holds temptations that Oxford cannot offer." Is he flirting? It's so hard to tell with Victorian gentlemen. Their compliments are hidden beneath layers of propriety. More guests arrive. The drawing room fills with the sound of polite conversation. Everyone stands. Being seated before the evening meal would imply eagerness to eat, which would be poor taste. You see Charlotte Hartley and her fiancé, Mr. Edwards, across the room. They stand a proper distance apart. No touching, no meaningful glances. To the casual observer, they might not even be engaged. When all the guests have come, the butler announces that the evening meal is ready. Now comes the intricate dance of proceeding into the dining room. The host, Mr. Fairchild, offers his arm to the highest status female guest. The highest status male guest offers his arm to the hostess. Everyone else pairs off according to rank, forming a procession into the dining room. You find yourself paired with a middle-aged gentleman you've never met before. Thomas, you notice, is escorting an elderly lady with an elaborate cloth turban on her head. The dining room glitters with crystal, silver, and candlelight. The table shines with polished silver and fine china. Before you lies a confusing array of flatware at your place setting. Forks for fish, spoons for soup and dessert, multiple knives, and more. Choosing incorrectly would be a total social catastrophe. Your seat is near the middle of the table, not at the end, which is a relief, though not close to the head either. Thomas is sitting across from you, a few chairs down. At a Victorian dinner party, you speak mainly with the gentleman on either side of you, never directly across. The man on your right speaks to you. "I believe you know my nephew, Miss Wilson, Charles Pembroke. I think you two danced together at Lady Hamilton's ball last year." You try to remember. Yes, you recall dancing with a Mr. Pembroke. He stepped on your feet 3 times and spoke only about his horse. "Yes, of course," you reply warmly. "Mr. Pembroke dances quite well, a harmless lie for the sake of keeping the peace." The meal progresses through several courses. Soup, fish, meat, game, dessert, each with its own serving rituals and correct flatware. You take cautious, small bites, chewing softly. A lady must never appear to eat with gusto, no matter how hungry she is. Table conversation is carefully balanced between engaging and harmless. Politics, religion, money, and anything too personal are entirely forbidden. Instead, people discuss recent theatre shows, exhibitions at the Royal Academy, the weather, and trips to approved locations like Italy or France. You catch Thomas looking at you from his side of the table. When your eyes meet, he instantly looks away. In this society of strict social codes, even a simple glance can carry meaning. Following dessert comes the most gender-specific ritual of the Victorian dinner party. Mrs. Fairchild makes eye contact with the most senior female guest and stands from her seat. This signals all the ladies to leave the dining room. The men remain behind for their port and cigars. You join the line of women heading back to the drawing room. This separation of sexes serves several purposes in Victorian society. It allows men to talk about masculine topics like business and politics. It gives women a chance to use the chamber pot if necessary, crucial given the huge skirts that make routine bathroom trips difficult. And it keeps up the pretense that ladies are too refined to be around strong drink and cigars. In the drawing room, the women form small talking groups. Mrs. Fairchild ensures Charlotte and her future mother-in-law are seated side by side, showing support for the upcoming marriage. "Would you perform for us, Miss Wilson?" Mrs. Fairchild asks, gesturing toward the pianoforte nearby. There it is, the dreaded question. You cannot refuse, yet you also cannot seem too eager. "If you wish it, Mrs. Fairchild," you respond humbly, though I am certain others here are more gifted musicians. "Nonsense," Mrs. Fairchild insists. "Everyone has heard of your talent." You walk to the piano, manoeuvring your massive skirt as best you can on the narrow bench. You play a Mozart piece, difficult enough to demonstrate skill, but not so complex as to seem boastful. You maintain perfect posture, your face set in a gentle smile, no grimacing or swaying with the music, which would be viewed as too emotional. When you finish, the ladies clap politely. You accept their praise with a modest nod, then take your seat again. Your hands tremble faintly, but no one notices. A proper Victorian lady never shows nervousness. Roughly 30 minutes after the ladies left the dining room, the gentlemen rejoin them. The smell of cigars clings to their clothing. Several have flushed faces from the port. The senior men take armchairs while the younger ones move among the ladies. Thomas works his way toward you, stopping to speak with other guests first to avoid looking too keen. "I enjoyed your performance, Miss Wilson," he remarks when he reaches you. "Mozart, wasn't it?" "Yes," you answer, "his sonata in C major. You play with considerable feeling," he observes, then quickly adds, "but proper restraint, naturally." You smile faintly. "Thank you, Mr. Fairchild. I hear you are studying classics at Oxford." And thus begins the Victorian style of courtship, a precisely managed conversation of neutral subjects with true intentions hidden beneath the surface. You discuss books, nothing too sentimental, music, nothing too passionate, and art, nothing too controversial. Meanwhile, you are evaluating each other. Is he intelligent? Is she educated? Would we be compatible? You see Mrs. Fairchild watching you both with a pleased expression. Mothers are the key organisers of Victorian marriages. Surely she included your family this evening precisely to match you with Thomas. After what feels like mere moments, but is actually nearly 30 minutes, Thomas reluctantly takes his leave. "I ought to speak with Miss Hartley and congratulate her on her engagement," he mentions. "Certainly," you reply, hiding your disappointment. "It was pleasant conversing with you, Mr. Fairchild." He bows lightly. "The pleasure was entirely mine, Miss Wilson." As he departs, your mother appears beside you. "He seems quite taken," she whispers. "Does he?" You reply, pretending as if you hadn't noticed. Your mother sees through you. "Don't look too keen, Jane. Nothing scares off a potential suitor faster than an overeager young woman." The night continues with more music, some card games, and constant movement of guests around the room. Everyone takes care to address everyone else. No one lingers in any single conversation too long. The appearance of social harmony is everything. At precisely 11 o'clock, the first guests start to leave. This signals it is now proper for others to depart too. The Victorians have strict rules, even for ending a party. Your father catches your mother's eye and she nods subtly. Time to leave. You say your goodbyes to the hosts, thanking them appropriately for their hospitality. Thomas is nearby and bows to you once more. "Until our paths cross again, Miss Wilson," he murmurs quietly. "Good evening, Mr. Fairchild," you respond, your tone revealing nothing of your inner emotions. Outside, your carriage is waiting. As you sink into the cushion, you finally allow yourself a small sigh of relief. The evening went smoothly. No social mistakes, and Thomas seemed genuinely attracted to you. A successful night, your father declares as the carriage moves away. This is high praise coming from him. Yes, your mother agrees. Mrs. Fairchild mentioned they are having a small musical event next week. We will be receiving an invitation. Your heart speeds up a little. Another chance to see Thomas. Once home, Mary helps you change, meticulously hanging your evening dress and putting away your jewellery. Your hair, so carefully styled, tumbles down your back as she removes the pins. "Did you have a good time, miss?" Mary asks as she brushes your hair. "It was an agreeable evening," you reply, keeping your demeanour steady even before your lady's maid. Servants observe everything and gossip amongst themselves. Any sign of enthusiasm about Thomas could reach his house through the servants' grapevine. After Mary leaves, you remain at your vanity briefly, studying your reflection. Beneath your calm exterior, your thoughts are racing. Did Thomas specifically come to see you? What did his mother's watchful look mean? Will he call on you? Or must you wait until the musical event? Courtship in the Victorian era is like playing chess blindfolded. Every move matters, yet half the time you're unaware you're even playing. And the stakes are huge. Your entire future happiness rests on securing a suitable match. You go to the window, pulling the curtain back slightly to peer out at the misty London night. Gas lamps form glowing circles in the fog. A lone cab rattles by on the cobblestones. Somewhere out there, Thomas Fairchild might be thinking of you too. But in this world of severe propriety and concealed emotions, how can anyone know? You will have to wait and see what the next social occasion brings and what new rules you will have to master. Your next encounter with Thomas Fairchild arrives sooner than expected. The very next day, in fact. You are sitting in the front parlour, half-heartedly looking through an appropriately educational book about botany, when Mary comes to the door. "Mr. Thomas Fairchild has called, miss," she states. "He is inquiring if you and your mother are receiving visitors." Your heart pounds, but your expression remains perfectly composed. "Please inform him we are from Mary, and notify my mother." A well-bred Victorian young woman is never left alone with a gentleman visitor. Your mother must remain present throughout the entire call. Even leaving the room briefly would be scandalous. Mary curtsies and vanishes. You have about 30 seconds to collect yourself. You check your hair in the small mirror over the fireplace, adjust your posture, and pick up your book again, arranging yourself to look casually occupied. The door opens, and there is Thomas, looking even more striking in daylight. His formal morning attire suits him perfectly. Dark coat, perfectly tied cravat, polished boots. He is holding his top hat and gloves. A gentleman always removes his hat inside but keeps his gloves until he sits. "Miss Wilson," he says, bowing. "I trust I find you in good health today." "Quite well, thank you, Mr. Fairchild," you reply, setting your book down and indicating a chair. "Please sit. My mother will join us shortly." Thomas sits, now removing his gloves and tucking them in his hat. This is the Victorian version of settling in. "I found the evening at your family's home last night most enjoyable," you mention, keeping your tone pleasant but not overly warm. "I did as well," he answers. "My mother was especially taken with your musical ability." Before you can reply, your mother enters the room. Thomas stands instantly. A gentleman always rises when a lady enters. "Mr. Fairchild," your mother says, beaming. "What a nice surprise." Thomas bows once more. "Mrs. Wilson, I hope this isn't an inconvenient time." "Not in the least," your mother confirms, sitting on the sofa next to you. Now the real performance begins. "I've come to deliver an invitation," Thomas says. "My mother is organising a modest musical gathering for next Tuesday. She is hoping Miss Wilson and all of you will be able to attend, so that is why he is here, not merely to pay a call, but functioning as his mother's messenger." Still, he could have dispatched a servant with a written request. The fact that he arrived in person is significant. "How kind," your mother replies. "We would be honoured to accept." "Splendid," Thomas says, his eyes moving to you. "My mother also wondered if Miss Wilson might possibly think about playing that Mozart piece. Last night's performance was much admired. Now you understand everything. Mrs. Fairchild wants to show you off to her acquaintances. You are being evaluated as a potential daughter-in-law. I would be happy to play," you answer modestly, "though I am certain your mother has secured more accomplished performers." Thomas disagrees. "None that I am aware of. Your talent would be the highlight of the evening." Is he genuinely giving you a direct compliment? That is almost improper in Victorian society. Your mother smoothly intercedes. "My daughter applies herself diligently to her music, Mr. Fairchild. We are grateful for the opportunity to display the results of her dedication." The conversation continues with this kind of polite exchange, discussing mutual friends and upcoming social events. Thomas is careful to direct most of his remarks to your mother, only occasionally addressing you directly. This is correct Victorian etiquette. After precisely 15 minutes, the acceptable duration for a morning call, Thomas stands up. "I have trespassed on your time. Long enough, Mrs. Wilson. Miss Wilson," he says, "I will convey your acceptance to my mother. She will be quite pleased." Your mother summons Mary, who arrives to show Thomas out. He bows to both of you, his gaze lingering on you for just an instant longer than strictly necessary. Once the door closes behind him, your mother turns to you with a satisfied look. "Well," she observes, "it seems the Fairchilds have developed a liking for you. You try to appear only mildly pleased. Mrs. Fairchild is very gracious to invite us to her musical event." Your mother gives you a knowing look. "It was not Mrs. Fairchild who just called upon us, was it?" Before you can respond, the doorbell rings once more. Mary returns moments later. "Miss Charlotte Hartley and Mrs. Hartley, ma'am," she announces. More callers. The morning visiting ritual is fully in progress. Charlotte enters with her mother, both dressed in the very latest styles. Charlotte looks radiant. Being engaged suits her clearly. Following the formal greetings, Charlotte leans in slightly, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Have you heard the latest about Mrs. Pembroke?" she asks quietly. Your mother raises an eyebrow. "What about her?" Mrs. Hartley makes a sound of disapproval. "It is quite shocking. She was observed riding through the park with Mr. Foster, alone in his conveyance. This is truly scandalous information. Mrs. Pembroke is a married lady. Mr. Foster is a bachelor known for his flirtatious nature, and being unchaperoned in a carriage together is essentially a public announcement of an indiscretion. Perhaps a footman was present," your mother suggests, always inclined to think the best of people. Mrs. Hartley shakes her head firmly. "Completely alone. My cousin's wife saw it personally." This is how reputations are ruined in Victorian London. One imprudent carriage ride, a few gossiping voices, and a woman can become socially ostracised. Men face less serious repercussions. Mr. Foster might receive some critical looks at his gentleman's club, but nothing more. The imbalance is flourishing in 1850. The discussion shifts to Charlotte's wedding preparations, which are proceeding wonderfully. She will be married in 3 months. Her wedding ensemble is being assembled. The wedding breakfast will be hosted at the Hartley residence after the church service. Observing Charlotte's genuine happiness, you feel a hint of, not exactly envy, but anticipation. Will this be your future, planning a wedding to Thomas Fairchild? Or is that inferring too much from a simple social visit? After the Hartleys leave, you have barely an hour before your next commitment. A charity committee meeting at the clergyman's house. Victorian women of position are expected to engage in philanthropic endeavours, organising relief for the poor and the sick. It is considered a suitable outlet for feminine compassion and energy. The meeting is tedious but essential. You and a dozen other ladies from respectable families discuss winter blankets for the needy, soup kitchens and clothing donations. The clergyman's wife takes notes and assigns duties. You volunteer to collect used clothes from various homes. It is a reputable activity that will allow you to make morning visits with justification. Following the meeting, you return home with two other young women who live nearby. The conversation turns predictably to engagements and potential suitors. Did you know that Thomas Fairchild has returned from Oxford? One of them, Emma Parker, mentions casually. Too casually. Yes. I believe I heard something about that, you state, keeping your voice neutral despite the sudden quickening in your chest. Emma has always been drawn to Thomas. My mother says Mrs. Fairchild is arranging a musical evening next week, Emma continues. We have received an invitation. Will you be attending? Yes. We got one too, you reply, not disclosing that Thomas delivered it himself. Emma's smile becomes slightly strained. How lovely! Perhaps you will perform for everyone. You are so skillful on the piano. Mrs. Fairchild did request a performance, you acknowledge. Emma's companion Sarah adds in. Thomas has always appreciated music. I recall him helping turn sheet music for the pianist at the Johnsons' ball last year. The implication is unmistakable. These two young ladies both regard Thomas Fairchild as a potential husband for themselves. The competition for eligible bachelors is intense in Victorian London, particularly one as desirable and well situated as Thomas. By the time you reach your home, you are weary from maintaining your composed demeanour. The constant vigilance demanded by Victorian social rules is draining. Each word, each look, each gesture requires precise command. You barely have time to change before dinner, changing into a different dress and rearranging your hair before joining your family downstairs. Tonight, it is only the four of you, your parents, your brother James, and yourself. James appears cheerful. He spent the entire day at his club, socialising with other young men from respectable families. Victorian society's gender regulations grant him freedoms you can only imagine. He moves unrestricted, engages in sports, participates in political and business discussions, and even travels without accompaniment. Thomas Fairchild was at the club today, James mentions casually while cutting his roast beef. You focus on your plate, taking a delicate, modest bite of potato. Was he? Your father responds. Good family, the Fairchilds. Established wealth, excellent reputation. Thomas said he stopped by here earlier, James goes on, looking your way, delivering an invitation to some musical gathering his mother is arranging. Yes, he called this morning, your mother confirms. Extremely polite young man. James smiles. He asked a few questions concerning you, Jane. You glance up, unable to conceal your interest. Really? What sort of questions? Wanted to know if you ride, what books you prefer, whether art exhibitions interest you, things like that. This matters. Thomas is compiling data about you, trying to determine if your tastes align with his. It is the Victorian equivalent of reviewing your social profile. Your mother gives James a warning look, silently cautioning him against teasing you. Yet you perceive her satisfaction. A connection with the Fairchild family would be advantageous. Thomas is their eldest son, set to inherit his father's banking firm and considerable estate, and he appears genuinely pleasant, which is a benefit not every Victorian bride receives. After dinner, you retire to the drawing room while James and your father enjoy their port and cigars in the study. Another evening of needlework and quiet conversation with your mother. If Thomas Fairchild maintains his interest, your mother remarks while threading her needle, we ought to consider your wardrobe. That blue silk evening gown is lovely, but you will need something new for the musical gathering. This is your mother's way of indicating she endorses Thomas as a prospective suitor. New gowns are not commissioned lightly, considering their expense. Perhaps the dressmaker could call tomorrow, you suggest, attempting to sound merely moderately interested. Your mother agrees. I will send a message in the morning. The next few days fly by with preparations for the musical event. The dressmaker creates a new gown in soft green silk that complements your eyes. You practice the piano for countless hours each day, selecting a piece that is graceful but not overly dramatic. Mendelssohn's Song Without Words. On the morning of the musical evening, an unexpected package arrives for you. Mary brings it to your room, a small box wrapped in brown paper. "This was delivered for you, miss," she announces, brought by the Fairchild's footman. Your hands tremble slightly as you open it. Inside is a slim volume of poetry, Tennyson's newest collection, a small note tucked inside bearing a brief message in clear masculine writing. "Miss Wilson, I thought you might enjoy these verses. The one marked on page 43 brought you to mind when playing. Sincerely, T. Fairchild." You quickly turn to page 43. There is a poem about music with one line delicately underlined. The listener's soul moves through the player's skillful hands. Mary watches your face, clearly curious. "It is merely a poetry book," you say casually, as if gentlemen deliver books to you regularly. "From Mr. Fairchild." "Very kind of him," Miss Mary observes, a perceptive look in her eyes. Servants inevitably know what is happening before anyone else. You hide the book in your dresser. Victorian custom dictates you cannot openly display it or mention it to others. Gifts between unmarried men and women are virtually forbidden unless they are betrothed. Thomas has stretched the rules by sending this book. If you acknowledge it publicly, you would be breaking them completely. Yet in the privacy of your room, you hold the book against your chest for a moment, allowing yourself to feel the excitement that respectable Victorian ladies never show. Thomas Fairchild is unambiguously pursuing you. That evening your family arrives at the Fairchild's house exactly on time. Not early, which would appear eager, and not late, which would be rude. Your new green silk dress rustles softly as you step from the carriage, the crinoline underneath maintaining its perfect bell shape. The Fairchild's drawing room already holds a number of guests when you enter. Your eyes immediately search for Thomas, finding him across the room speaking with an older gentleman. He looks up as you come in, and although his manner remains properly reserved, his eyes visibly brighten. Mrs. Fairchild welcomes you warmly, complimenting your attire and expressing thanks beforehand for your musical contribution. She guides you towards several young women, including, unfortunately, Emma Parker. Emma's gown is noticeably similar to yours in shade, though not as skillfully made. She spots the resemblance immediately and offers you a forced smile. "Such a coincidence, Miss Wilson," she remarks. "We seem to have had the same idea about colour. What she means is we are both trying to capture Thomas's notice with green dresses. The rivalry persists. The musical segment of the evening begins with a professional singer performing several Italian songs. Next, a gentleman performs on the violin. You are scheduled to perform third, which is a good position, not first, which would suggest you are the least important performer, and not last, which would create too much anxiety for you. As you approach the piano, Thomas steps forward. "May I assist with the pages, Miss Wilson?" he asks. This is significant. Page turning positions him directly beside you at the instrument, a proximity rarely allowed between unmarried people. It is also public. Everyone will notice his attention on you. "Thank you, Mr. Fairchild," you reply, keeping your voice steady despite your racing heart. "That would be very helpful." You sit down at the piano, managing your substantial skirts as best you can. Thomas stands next to you, close enough that you can detect his scent. Sandalwood and something citrus-like. You place your music on the stand. Although you have memorized the piece and do not truly need it, the sheet music provides Thomas a reason to be near you. Taking a deep breath, you begin to play. The Mendelssohn composition is melodic and romantic without being overly passionate, perfect for a suitable Victorian performance. You are keenly aware of Thomas beside you, turning pages exactly when needed. At one point, his hand brushes yours by accident, and you feel the contact like an electric current. Yet your playing never falters. When you conclude, the applause is generous. Thomas extends his hand to help you rise from the piano bench, another slight liberty that does not escape the notice of the observing company. "Exquisitely played," he whispers as you return to your place. "Thank you for your assistance," you answer, your voice barely audible. Mrs. Fairchild looks delighted. Mr. Fairchild offers Thomas a nod of approval, and Emma Parker resembles someone tasting something sour. The courtship ritual moves forward, one meticulously managed step at a time. Following the musical presentations, refreshments are served. Thomas manages to bring you a cup of punch without being overly obvious about selecting you specifically. He does not linger to converse that would be too conspicuous, but moves on to acknowledge other guests, other visitors. Nevertheless, the action communicates a great deal in a society where every behaviour carries weight. As the evening draws on, you observe Thomas's father engaged in serious discussion with your own. They stand by the fireplace, looking grave. Business perhaps, or something more private. Your mother appears at your side, following your gaze. Your father finds the Fairchild's banking interests quite impressive, she mentions softly. He is considering an investment. Yet there is something in her tone that suggests more than financial matters. The Victorians appreciate efficiency. If two families are contemplating joining through marriage, why not strengthen business ties at the same time? The evening starts to wind down. Guests begin to leave, thanking their hosts for a pleasant musical programme. Your family prepares to depart, collecting shawls and gloves. Thomas approaches as you wait in the entryway for your carriage to be called. "Miss Wilson," he says formally, "might I call on you tomorrow afternoon? There is an exhibition at the Royal Academy I thought you might find interesting." "With your parents' permission, of course," he adds quickly, acknowledging your father. "This is vital. A direct request to court you. Not quite a proposal, but a clear statement of intent." In Victorian terms, Thomas is asking for authorization to pursue you officially. Your father looks pleased, but maintains his composure. "We would be delighted to receive you, Mr. Fairchild. Around 2 in the afternoon, maybe?" "2 o'clock sounds perfect, sir," Thomas replies, relief clear in his voice. He turns toward you. "Until tomorrow, Miss Wilson." "Until tomorrow, Mr. Fairchild," you say back, your calm face hiding your inner excitement. Outside, your carriage is waiting. Thomas helps you step up into it, one last touch of his hand on yours before you part ways for the night. As the carriage pulls away, you see him still standing in the doorway, watching you go. In the dim glow of the gas lamps, his expression looks more open, more hopeful than Victorian rules usually allow. Your mother squeezes your hand in the carriage's shadows. No words are needed. The courtship has officially begun. Tomorrow, Thomas will come see you, and you'll attend the exhibition with your mother as chaperone. It's the first step on the path that could lead to betrothal, marriage, a life together. For now, though, you just hold on to the memory of his hand on yours, his eyes meeting yours across the piano, the poetry book tucked away in your drawer. In Victorian society's rigid world, these tiny moments are as thrilling as the boldest declarations in other times. The London night passes by. Through the carriage windows, gas lamps cast circles of golden light on the foggy streets. Somewhere far off, a clock strikes midnight. Another day of navigating Victorian social rules is coming to an end. But tomorrow brings new challenges and new possibilities with Thomas Fairchild. The next day dawns bright and clear, a rare thing in London's usually grey winter. Maybe even the weather approves of your growing romance with Thomas Fairchild. You wake up earlier than usual, too excited to sleep, despite knowing that proper Victorian ladies never ever show enthusiasm. Mary helps you dress in a walking outfit suitable for an art exhibition. A daytime dress in deep burgundy wool with a matching jacket and hat. The outfit is fashionable but not showy, right for a young lady of good family being courted by a respectable gentleman. "You look lovely, miss," Mary says, as she secures your hat with pins, if you don't mind me saying. "Thank you, Mary," you reply, looking at your reflection. The burgundy colour gives a nice warmth to your complexion. You hope Thomas will like it. Downstairs, you find your mother already in the sitting room, dressed for her role as chaperone. A proper Victorian courtship requires constant supervision. You and Thomas will never be alone together until after you're married, if that's where this courtship leads. Remember, your mother says as you wait for Thomas to show up. Enthusiasm is unbecoming in a young lady. Mr. Fairchild should feel he's earning your affection, not that it's being freely given. You nod, though inside you think Victorian courtship rules are exhausting. So much hiding of real feelings, so much acting indifferent when you care. But the rules must be followed if you want to keep your reputation and make a good match. At precisely 2 o'clock, the doorbell rings. Thomas is punctual, another good sign. The butler shows him into the sitting room where he bows to both you and your mother. "Mrs. Wilson, Miss Wilson," he says, "I trust you're both well today." "Quite well. Thank you, Mr. Fairchild," your mother replies. "It's a lovely day for an exhibition." "Indeed," Thomas agrees. "The carriage is ready, whenever you're set." Thomas has arranged his family's carriage, an elegant vehicle, displaying the Fairchild crest on the door, a clear sign of his family's prosperity and his serious intentions toward you. In Victorian society, every detail means something. The three of you settle into the carriage, you and your mother on one side, Thomas across from you on the other. As the carriage begins moving, you catch Thomas watching you, admiration visible in his eyes despite his restrained manner. "That colour suits you wonderfully, miss." "Wilson," he comments, then adds quickly as Mrs. Wilson's daughter, "You've clearly inherited her excellent taste." The compliment is directed partly to your mother to avoid seeming too forward. Thomas knows the game's rules. "You're very kind, Mr. Fairchild," you respond, lowering your eyes modestly. The carriage rolls through London's busy streets toward the Royal Academy. Thomas points out interesting landmarks along the way, addressing his comments mostly to your mother with occasional looks at you. Everything perfectly proper at the exhibition. Thomas pays your entrance fee, another sign of intent. You walk through the galleries, viewing paintings of landscapes, portraits and historical scenes. The exhibition is crowded with fashionable people, many of whom you recognise from various social events. "Miss Wilson." "Mrs. Wilson," a familiar voice calls out. You turn to see Emma Parker approaching with her mother. Of course, Emma wouldn't miss a chance to interrupt your time with Thomas. "Miss Parker," Thomas says, bowing. "Politely, Mrs. Parker. What a pleasant surprise." Emma positions herself next to Thomas, commenting on a nearby painting. "Don't you think the artist has captured the light beautifully, Mr. Fairchild? It reminds me of the view from my aunt's estate in the Lake District. You should visit sometime. The scenery is breathtaking. This is a bold move, basically inviting Thomas to visit her family. Family's connections. You maintain your composed expression, though inside you're dismissing her obviousness. Thomas handles the situation with perfect Victorian tact. "I'm sure the Lake District is lovely, Miss Parker. Currently, though, I'm committed to business in London. Miss Wilson and I were just studying this portrait. The technique is quite remarkable." He smoothly guides you and your mother away from Emma toward another gallery, leaving Emma looking rather deflated. Point 1 for Thomas's social skills. As you move through the exhibition, you encounter several other people from your social circle. Each interaction follows the same pattern: formal greetings, polite conversation, curious glances. Between you and Thomas, everyone understands what's happening. Thomas Fairchild is publicly announcing his interest in you by escorting you to the exhibition. By this time tomorrow, it will be common knowledge in your social world. After an hour of viewing art and managing social encounters, Thomas suggests refreshments. The Academy has a small tea room where visitors can rest and talk. He finds a table for the three of you, ordering tea and small cakes. "I hope you're enjoying the exhibition, miss." "Wilson," Thomas says as you wait for your tea. "Very much, Mr. Fairchild," you answer. "The new works by Mr. Turner are particularly impressive." "I thought you might appreciate them," he says, a hint of genuine pleasure breaking through his proper exterior. "Your brother mentioned you practice painting yourself." "Only as an amateur," you say modestly. "A proper Victorian lady might pursue artistic interests, but never with professional ambitions." "I'd be interested to see your work sometime," Thomas says, then acknowledges your mother. "With your permission, of course, Mrs. Wilson," your mother nods approvingly. "Jane has several watercolours in our sitting room. Perhaps you could view them on your next visit." This is significant. Your mother is directly inviting Thomas to call again. The courtship is progressing well. The tea arrives, shortly stopping conversation. As you sip from your cup, you notice a gentleman at a nearby table watching your group with interest. He's middle-aged, richly dressed, with a calculating look. Something about him makes you uncomfortable. Thomas notices your slight unease. "Is everything all right, miss?" "Wilson." You lower your voice. "That gentleman seems to be watching us quite deliberately." Thomas glances casually in the direction you indicated. Then his expression darkens slightly. "Ah, Lord Barrington." "Don't worry yourself, miss," Wilson, "but your mother has also noticed the man." "Lord Barrington," she says quietly. "I wasn't aware he had returned to London. Society. There's something in her tone that catches your attention." "Do you know him, mother?" Your mother and Thomas exchange a look that suggests they both know something you don't. "Lord Barrington has a certain reputation," your mother says carefully, "particularly concerning young ladies." Thomas clears his throat. "Perhaps we should continue our tour of the exhibition. There's an excellent collection of miniatures in the next gallery." As you stand to leave, Lord Barrington also rises and approaches your table. Thomas immediately moves slightly in front of you, a subtle but definite protective gesture. "Fairchild," Lord Barrington says with a slight bow. "Mrs. Wilson. And this must be the lovely Miss Wilson I've heard so much about." His gaze lingers on you in a way that makes your skin crawl. This isn't the respectful attention of a gentleman, but something more predatory. Thomas' voice is perfectly polite, but noticeably cooler. "Lord Barrington, I wasn't aware you were back in London." "Just returned from the continent," Lord Barrington responds, his eyes still on you. "Paris has its charms, but I find London's young ladies incomparable. Perhaps Miss Wilson would honour me with an introduction." This puts your mother in a difficult position. Social etiquette dictates that introductions should be made when requested, but Lord Barrington's reputation makes him an unsuitable acquaintance for an unmarried young lady. Your mother handles it with perfect Victorian diplomacy. "I'm afraid we're just leaving, Lord Barrington. Perhaps another time." It's a polite refusal, but a refusal nonetheless. Lord Barrington's expression hardens, but he can't press the issue without appearing rude. "Of course," he says smoothly. "Another time." As you leave the tea room, Thomas keeps himself between you and Lord Barrington, his manner protective without being improper. Once you're safely in another gallery, he speaks in a low voice to your mother. "I apologise for that encounter, Mrs. Wilson. Had I known Lord Barrington would be attending, I would have suggested a different outing." Your mother shakes her head. "You couldn't have known, Mr. Fairchild. I'm grateful for your quick thinking. You're burning with curiosity about Lord Barrington and his apparently questionable reputation. But proper Victorian ladies," Don't ask direct questions about scandalous matters. You'll have to wait until you're alone with your mother to learn more. The rest of the exhibition passes without incident, though you notice Thomas is more alert than before, staying close to your side as you move through the galleries. It's rather nice to be protected, even if the threat was purely social rather than physical. When it's time to leave, Thomas escorts you and your mother back to the carriage. As you settle into your seat, he says, "I hope the encounter with Lord Barrington didn't spoil your enjoyment of the exhibition, Miss Wilson." "Not at all, Mr. Fairchild. You assure him the art was too wonderful to be overshadowed by a brief social unpleasantness." Thomas looks relieved. "I'm glad to hear it." He hesitates, then adds, "I should mention Lord Barrington is not received in the best houses in London. His behaviour toward young ladies has been less than honourable. This is the closest thing to a warning a Victorian gentleman can give about someone dangerous. The details remain vague to protect your delicate sensibilities, but the message comes through perfectly clear. Stay away from Lord Barrington. The carriage brings you and your mother back home, where Thomas helps you both down to the pavement. At your front door, he bows formally. "I thank you for such a pleasant afternoon, Mrs. Wilson." "Miss Wilson," he says, "may I call tomorrow? There's something I need to discuss with Mr. Wilson, if he's available." Your heart races. Something to discuss with your father? In Victorian courtship, this can mean only one thing. Thomas plans to ask permission to officially court you, the step right before a formal engagement. Your mother composes herself with more poise than you can manage. "My husband will be home tomorrow afternoon, Mr. Fairchild. 3:00 would be convenient." 3:00 then, Thomas confirms. His eyes meet yours briefly, and his proper mask slips just enough to reveal genuine emotion. "Until tomorrow, Miss Wilson." "Until tomorrow, Mr. Fairchild," you reply, your voice steadier than your pounding heart. Once inside, your mother waits until the door closes fully before allowing a small, triumphant smile to appear. "Well," she says, "I believe Mr. Fairchild intends to discuss his intentions regarding you with your father tomorrow." You nod, worried that speaking will reveal your barely controlled excitement. Still improper for a well-bred Victorian young lady. If your father gives his approval, your mother continues, you can expect a formal proposal very soon. We should begin preparing your trousseau. A trousseau? That collection of clothing, linens and personal items a bride brings into her marriage. The Victorian version of a hope chest in the planning phase. Your mother obviously considers your engagement practically settled. "Yes, mother," you say, still trying to appear appropriately reserved. Your brother James arrives home just then, bringing in a rush of cold air and masculine energy into the entrance hall. "Jane!" he calls out. "Seeing your flushed cheeks, you look like someone just told you wonderful news. Did Fairchild propose already?" "James," your mother scolds. "Such matters aren't spoken of so bluntly. However, Mr. Fairchild did escort your sister and me to the Royal Academy today, and he'll be calling tomorrow to speak with your father." James grins broadly. Well, my congratulations, little sister. Fairchild's a solid man. Perhaps a bit too earnest, but good character all the way through." From your brother, that qualifies as high praise. "He hasn't proposed yet," you remind him, though your heart leaps at the possibility. "Just a formality," James says, tugging off his gloves. "Everyone in town knows he's taken with you. Oh, and speaking of town gossip, did you hear about Lord Barrington's return? Caused quite the stir at the club." Your mother's expression tightens. "We encountered him at the exhibition." "Very unfortunate." James looks worried. "You met Barrington. Did he speak to Jane?" "Mr. Fairchild handled the situation admirably," your mother assures him. "But perhaps you should tell your sister about Lord Barrington's reputation in appropriate terms." "Absolutely." James nods seriously. After your mother departs to speak with the housekeeper about dinner, he faces you. "Lord Barrington is what gentlemen call a rake," he states directly. "He goes after young women with intentions that aren't honourable. There was quite a scandal last season involving the Matthews girl. Nothing was proven, but her standing was ruined. She got sent away to family in Scotland. This is unusually honest talk by Victorian standards. Brothers sometimes took on the duty of alerting their sisters about risky men, breaking through the usual conversational limits. "I see," you murmur quietly. "I appreciate the heads up. Just stay away from him," James advises. "Though I expect you won't have to worry much longer. Once you're promised to Fairchild, Barrington won't have the nerve to approach you." The idea of being promised to Thomas brings another surge of anticipation through you. Fewer than 4 weeks back, you were simply a young woman in London society. Now you're standing at the edge of a proposal from one of the most sought-after bachelors in town. The rest of the day passes in anxious expectation. You go through your usual activities, piano lessons, embroidery, supper with your family. But your mind keeps returning to tomorrow and what it might hold. That night, as Mary gets you ready for bed, she notices your preoccupation. "Big day, miss?" she inquires while combing your hair. "Only an exhibition at the Royal Academy," you answer, maintaining the fiction that nothing important is happening. Mary grins knowingly. "Naturally, miss. And will Mr. Fairchild be stopping by again soon?" "Tomorrow afternoon," you admit. "He needs to talk with my father." Mary's eyes grow large. "Oh, miss, that's wonderful news." "He hasn't asked yet," you caution her, though you can't hide your smile. "It's only a matter of time," Mary assures, putting the brush down. "Everyone in the house sees he's smitten with you. Cook mentions she'll prepare your favourite cake for tea tomorrow as a celebration. Clearly everyone expects a proposal. Everyone but you, who as a proper Victorian young lady must pretend surprised and moved when it finally happens. As you settle into bed, your thoughts race too fast for sleep. Tomorrow Thomas will speak with your father, if your father consents, and you can't imagine why he wouldn't. Thomas will then be permitted to formally ask for your hand. You'll accept after an appropriate show of surprise and thoughtful consideration, and then you'll be promised. An engagement in Victorian society is no small thing. Unlike today's casual engagements, broken engagements during Victorian times could destroy reputations, particularly for women. Once you accept Thomas's offer, you're basically committed, unless something truly shocking comes to light. You think about what you understand about Thomas Fairchild. He's handsome, intelligent, from a distinguished family with comfortable means. He treats you respectfully and seems truly interested in your thoughts and passions. By Victorian standards, he's virtually perfect, ideal. But what about love? Victorians regard passionate love with doubt as a basis for marriage. Compatibility, mutual respect, similar backgrounds and values. These count far more for a successful partnership. Romantic love, if it appears at all, should grow after marriage, not before. Still, you can't stop hoping that what you feel with Thomas, the quickening of your pulse when he enters a room, the glow that spreads through you when he catches your eye, might signal the beginning of something richer than simple appropriate compatibility. Outside your window, the gas lamps cast their golden glow on the empty street. A dog howls somewhere in the distance. Throughout London, a carriage rattles over cobblestones. In his family's residence, Thomas Fairchild might be lying awake as well, contemplating tomorrow, and the question he plans to ask your father. Morning comes too quickly, and not quickly enough. You dress with extra care in a morning dress of pale blue. Thomas once mentioned he found the shade appealing. Mary arranges your hair in a style that frames your face gently, while still appearing properly modest. Your father stays home this morning, an unusual decision that indicates he's anticipating Thomas's visit. He positions himself in his study, reviewing documents, but you observe he's wearing his best waistcoat and tucked a fresh flower in his lapel. Lunch feels strained. Nobody mentions Thomas's upcoming visit, but it hangs in the air, making ordinary conversation difficult. Your mother discusses meal plans with the housekeeper. Your father examines his newspaper. You push food around your plate, too nervous to eat. At precisely 5 minutes before 3, you retire to the drawing room with your mother. Victorian etiquette demands that you appear calm and occupied when Thomas arrives. not waiting impatiently at the door. You pick up your needlework, though your hands tremble too much for fine work. Your mother sits nearby, supposedly reading, but actually watching you with mixed sympathy and anticipation. The clock strikes 3. The doorbell rings. You hear the butler's measured footsteps, the rumble of conversation in the entryway. Then Thomas gets shown not to the drawing room where you're waiting, but to your father's study. This confirms it. He's come to ask permission to court you officially. Now starts the hardest part. The waiting. A refined Victorian lady doesn't hover near doors or eavesdrop on private conversations, no matter how badly she wants to know what's being said. You must sit quietly with your needlework, pretending as if your entire future isn't being decided one room away. 10 minutes pass by. 15. Your stitches grow increasingly uneven. Your mother gives up her reading pretense and simply watches the clock. Finally, after what seems like forever but is probably only 20 minutes, the study door opens. You hear your father's voice, then Thomas's nearing footsteps. Your father enters first, his expression giving nothing away. Thomas follows, looking unusually nervous despite his impeccable attire. "My dear," your father addresses your mother. "Mr. Fairchild needs to speak with Jane. Perhaps we should give them a few moments." Your mother's eyebrows lift. This violates convention. Unmarried couples never get left alone together, even in their own homes. But your father nods confidently, and your mother stands. "We'll be just in the morning room," she declares, giving Thomas a meaningful look that clearly says behave honourably or face the consequences. And then amazingly, impossibly, you find yourself alone with Thomas Fairchild. Well, not completely alone. The drawing room door remains open and you know your parents stay within earshot. But this is the most privacy Victorian decorum allows. Thomas stands by the fireplace, appearing less confident than you've seen before. His usual controlled demeanour has fractured, revealing genuine emotion beneath. "Miss Wilson," he begins, then stops. "Jane," he corrects, using your first name for the first time ever. "I've spoken with your father and received his consent to address you formally. Your heart pounds so hard you think he must notice it. This is the moment. The second every Victorian young lady gets prepared to anticipate." Thomas takes a step closer, though still maintaining a proper distance. "From our first meeting, I've been drawn to your intelligence, your grace, your kind spirit. These past weeks have only deepened my admiration and my regard." He hesitates, seemingly gathering his courage. Right now, he's not the refined Victorian gentleman, but just a man opening his heart. "What I'm trying to say, quite poorly I'm afraid, is that I hold you in the highest esteem and affection. Jane Wilson, would you do me the extraordinary honour of accepting my proposal of marriage?" Thomas's words hang in the air between you. This is the moment you've been anticipating, yet now that it's here, you find yourself truly overwhelmed. A proper Victorian lady, even one who has expected this for weeks, must appear surprised and touched by a proposal. But your reaction isn't entirely an act. There's something about the vulnerable look in Thomas's eyes, the slight tremor in his normally steady voice that moves you deeply. "Mr. Fairchild," you begin, then correct yourself. "Thomas, I am deeply honoured by your proposal." You hesitate, not for dramatic effect, but because emotion has made speaking hard. This isn't part of the Victorian script. You're supposed to be composed, modest, quietly pleased, but not passionate. Nothing would bring me more happiness than to accept. You finally manage. Your voice soft, but steady. Thomas's face transforms completely. The careful control he maintains in public vanishes entirely, revealing such happiness that it takes your breath. For one moment you see the man beneath the proper Victorian gentleman, a man of deep emotions, carefully restrained. "Jane," he he says, and just your name spoken in his voice feels like a gentle caress. You've made me the luckiest of men. He moves forward, then stops himself, remembering propriety. Even now, engaged to marry, Victorian rules forbid any physical contact beyond perhaps holding hands, and even that stretches boundaries. May I? He asks, extending his hand. You place your hand in his, feeling the warmth of his palm against yours. Such a simple touch, yet in your strictly chaperoned world, it feels remarkably intimate. I've brought something for you, Thomas says, reaching into his waistcoat pocket. With his free hand, he withdraws a small velvet box and opens it to reveal a ring. It belonged to my grandmother. The ring is lovely, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by small diamonds set in gold. Not as flashy as some modern engagement rings, but elegant and clearly valuable. It's beautiful, you whisper as he slips it onto your finger. The weight of it feels strange but not unpleasant. This visible symbol of your engagement will announce your new status to society before you say a word. The moment gets interrupted by the sound of nearing footsteps. Your parents, having given you as much privacy as Victorian propriety allows, return to the drawing room. Thomas immediately steps back to a respectable distance, though his gaze remains fixed on you. Well? Your father asks, looking between you. Miss Wilson has done me the great honour of accepting my proposal, sir, Thomas says formally. Your mother's face lights up with genuine delight. How wonderful. Champagne must be ordered to celebrate this occasion. The butler gets called, champagne gets poured, and everyone lifts their glasses to the newly engaged couple. Through all this celebration, you exist in a haze of amazement. Victorian courtship progresses at a startling speed. Just weeks ago, Thomas was merely someone you knew socially. Now he's the man you'll marry, your future husband. We should settle on dates, your father declares after the initial excitement settles. And financial matters, of course. Indeed, the practical side of Victorian marriage. Love and affection are nice enough, but marriage also means business dealings. Your father and Thomas will work out your marriage settlement, essentially a legal agreement outlining what property and money you bring to the marriage and how they'll be managed afterward. My solicitor has drafted some preliminary documents. Thomas shifts into business mode. I'd appreciate the opportunity to review them with you tomorrow, sir. Excellent. Your father shows approval. As for the wedding date itself, I was thinking roughly 3 months from now. Thomas suggests enough time for proper preparations, but not such a long engagement as to become tiresome. Does his voice hold a hint of eagerness? A sign that he's impatient to begin your life together? The thought creates a flutter of excitement inside you. 3 months seems appropriate, your mother agrees. Enough time for a proper trousseau to be prepared, but not so long that people might gossip. Because here's another Victorian rule. Engagements shouldn't be too short, suggesting unseemly haste or pressing reasons, nor too long, implying doubt or problems. 3 months hits the ideal balance. Thomas stays for the evening meal, his first dinner as your official fiancé. The conversation flows easily, with a new closeness forming between your families. Plans are made, dates are set, futures are discussed. Throughout all of this, you catch Thomas looking at you with an expression of wonder, as if he can hardly believe his good fortune. When he finally leaves, he bows over your hand, holding it perhaps slightly longer than convention permits. Until tomorrow, Jane, he whispers softly. Until tomorrow, Thomas, you reply, enjoying the novelty of using his first name so openly. The next 3 months pass by in a whirlwind of preparations. Your engagement gets printed in the society pages. Congratulations and notes pour in. Your mother and Mrs. Fairchild meet regularly to plan the wedding breakfast and coordinate other details. Your days fill with fittings for your trousseau, the extensive wardrobe a bride gathers for her married life. Morning dresses, afternoon gowns, evening wear, day suits, Riding habits, nightgowns, wrappers, undergarments, gloves, bonnets, shoes, shawls. Everything a well-dressed Victorian wife might need for at least the first year of marriage. Then there's your wedding dress, the most important garment of your life. Pure white, of course, since Queen Victoria made white wedding gowns fashionable when she married Prince Albert. Yards of silk and lace with a train long enough to be impressive, but not so long as to seem ostentatious. A veil of delicate Brussels lace, white satin slippers, every detail perfect. Your hope chest fills with linens, quilts, tablecloths, serviettes, handkerchiefs. Many of these you've embroidered yourself over the years, preparing for this moment even before you knew who your husband would be. Amid the preparations, you see Thomas often, though never without a chaperone. Victorian propriety demands that even engaged couples maintain supervision. You walk through the park with your mother following discreetly behind. You attend dinner parties and balls together, but always under public observation. You exchange letters, the only private communication allowed, in which you gradually reveal more of yourselves than social settings permit. Through these letters you discover a depth in Thomas that his public manner hardly hints at. He writes about his hopes for your future together, his admiration for your intelligence, his desire to be a husband worthy of you. Nothing improper, nothing that couldn't be said aloud in polite company, yet sincere and increasingly affectionate. 2 weeks before the wedding, the Fairchilds host a dinner party for both families, a chance for extended relations to meet before the ceremony. Your aunts, uncles and cousins assess Thomas's family and vice versa. The dinner goes well. Both families show good breeding, financial security and social position. No embarrassing relatives to raise concerns. Your cousin Emily seems taken with my cousin William, Thomas murmurs to you during a moment when others are distracted elsewhere. Perhaps another match in the making. You follow his gaze to where Emily is laughing at something William has said. Perhaps you agree they would suit each other well, though not as well as we suit each other, Thomas adds, his voice low and warm. Such a simple statement, yet it makes heat rise to your cheeks. Even now, weeks into your engagement, his direct attention can fluster you. A proper Victorian lady shouldn't show such obvious reactions. Yet Thomas seems pleased rather than critical of your blushing face. The final week before your wedding becomes a blur of last-minute details. Your wedding gifts are displayed in the parlour. Silver tea services, crystal decanters, fine china, ornate clocks and decorative bowls. People come to admire them and offer their congratulations again. The night before your wedding, your mother comes to your room as Mary brushes your hair for the last time in your childhood home. Tomorrow you'll move to the Fairchild house, where you and Thomas will have your own private rooms. I wanted to speak with you, your mother says, dismissing Mary with a nod. About tomorrow night, here it comes, the Victorian version of the talk. Well-bred young women are sheltered so completely that many enter their wedding nights with almost no knowledge of what's coming. Your mother, progressive for her time, believes you deserve at least some preparation. Marriage involves physical intimacy, she begins awkwardly. It is a wife's duty to submit to her husband's needs. It may be uncomfortable at first, but a lady endures it with dignity. Hardly the most encouraging description of marital relations, yet typical of Victorian attitudes. Women aren't supposed to enjoy physical contact that would be indecent. They simply tolerate it as a duty and for the purpose of bearing children. The most important thing, your mother continues, is to maintain a harmonious household. Be mindful of Thomas's comfort, never contradict him in public. Keep a calm environment where he can rest from the pressures of business. This advice represents the Victorian ideal of separate spheres. Men inhabit the public sphere of business and politics. Women inhabit the private sphere of home and family. Your role as a wife is to create a peaceful haven for your husband and run the household efficiently. I'm sure you and Thomas will be very happy. your mother concludes, squeezing your hand. He seems like a good man, and he clearly cares for you. Thank you, mother, you say, grateful for her concern even while finding her advice somewhat lacking. I'm sure we'll be happy too. That night you hardly sleep, your mind too full of tomorrow and all it means. The end of your life as Miss Jane Wilson, the beginning of your life as Mrs. Thomas Fairchild. Your wedding morning dawns bright and clear. The ceremony is set for 11 o'clock at St. George's Church, Hanover Square, the fashionable choice for society weddings. You're dressed with careful precision. First, the finest underclothes from your trousseau, then the beautiful white dress with its fitted bodice and full skirt, the delicate veil placed over your elaborately styled hair. You look beautiful, miss, Mary says, tears in her eyes, begging your pardon, but you really do. Thank you, Mary, you reply, genuinely moved. Mary has served you for years, helping you navigate the complicated world of Victorian womanhood. I'll miss you. You'll have your own lady's maid at your new home, Mary mentions. Mrs. Fairchild has hired someone experienced in serving married ladies, another sign of how your circumstances are about to change. Even your household staff will be different. The carriage ride to the church passes like a dream. Your father, handsome in formal morning dress, helps you down and offers his arm to lead you inside. The church is filled with flowers and the rustle of expensive fabric as the congregation stands to watch your entrance. And there at the altar stands Thomas, looking more handsome than ever in his wedding clothes. His expression as he watches you walk toward him holds such open admiration that you almost stumble. No one has ever looked at you quite that way before. The ceremony is traditional and solemn. You speak your vows in a clear voice, promising to love, honour, and obey. Thomas slides a gold band onto your finger beside your engagement ring. The rector pronounces you husband and wife. Thomas is permitted to raise your veil and kiss you lightly on the lips the first time his mouth has touched yours. Just like that. You're married, Mrs. Thomas Fairchild. A new name, a new status, a different life. The wedding breakfast that follows is elegant, but not extravagant. Your parents have spent generously but not lavishly, a fine line in Victorian society where displaying wealth is considered vulgar. Champagne flows, delicate courses are served, speeches are made. You sit beside Thomas at the head table, still somewhat dazed by the morning's events. Are you happy, Jane? Thomas asks quietly during a moment when others are focused on the cake being cut. Very happy, you tell him. And it's true. Despite the swift pace of Victorian courtship, despite the rigid social rules that have shaped every step of your relationship, you've come to care deeply for this man, perhaps even to love him. Though Victorian convention means you've never said that word aloud. After the breakfast, you change from your wedding dress into a smart travelling outfit. You and Thomas will spend 2 weeks at his family's country estate in Kent, a modest honeymoon by modern standards, but typical for the era. The goodbyes are emotional but restrained. Excessive displays of feeling would be inappropriate. Your mother hugs you briefly. Your father shakes Thomas's hand and kisses your forehead. And then you're in the carriage, husband and wife, finally alone together for the first time. Thomas takes your hand, his thumb gently rubbing your palm. Well, Mrs. Fairchild, he says, his voice full of affection, shall we begin our adventure? You smile, a real smile, without the restraint Victorian society usually demands. Yes, you answer simply, let's. The carriage pulls away, taking you toward your new life. Behind you, wedding guests throw rice and flower petals for luck and fertility. Ahead lies the unknown territory of marriage, its challenges, its joys, its private discoveries. Victorian society holds strict expectations for wives, just as it does for unmarried ladies. You'll be expected to run your household efficiently, manage servants, make and receive social calls, engage in appropriate charitable work, and eventually, God willing, bear children. Your life will remain constrained by conventions and social expectations. But as Thomas's fingers interlock with yours, as his eyes meet yours with warmth and promise, you can't help feeling that within those constraints, you and Thomas might find your own way. A partnership, not just of convenience or social compatibility, but of genuine affection and mutual respect. The carriage rolls through London streets toward the Kent Road. Thomas points out sights along the way, his voice animated in a way you've rarely seen in public. You respond with observations of your own, delighting in this new freedom to converse without chaperones monitoring every word. By the time you reach the countryside, evening is falling. The rolling hills of Kent are bathed in golden light, the hedgerows casting long shadows across the fields. It's peaceful after the noise of London, the air fresh and sweet with the scent of spring flowers. Almost there, Thomas says as the carriage turns down a tree-lined drive. Well, one of our homes. We'll divide our time between London and here, if that suits you. It suits me wonderfully, you tell him, touched that he asks your opinion. Many Victorian husbands simply inform their wives of their decisions rather than consulting them. The house comes into view, not a grand manor, but a handsome country home of warm red brick with white-trimmed windows. Lights glow welcomingly in the gathering dusk. Servants stand ready at the entrance to greet the new master and mistress. As the carriage stops, Thomas squeezes your hand gently. Welcome home, Jane. And despite all the rules and restrictions of Victorian society, despite the quick courtship and the unknowns that lie ahead, you feel a sense of rightness. This is where you're supposed to be, with this man, in this life you'll build together. The footman opens the carriage door. Thomas steps out first, then turns to help you down. His hands at your waist are steady and sure as he lifts you to the ground. For a moment, you stand close together in the golden evening light, no longer bound by the strict chaperoning rules of courtship. Shall we? Thomas asks, offering his arm. You place your hand on his arm, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath the fine wool of his coat. Yes, you say, let's go home. Together you climb the steps toward your new life, leaving behind the limitations of unmarried Victorian womanhood and entering the different but equally complex world of Victorian marriage. There will be new rules to learn, new responsibilities to shoulder, but you'll face them together, finding your own happiness within the structures society has built around you. As evening settles gently over the Kent countryside, as stars appear one by one in the deepening blue of the sky, you and Thomas step through the doorway of your new home. The future stretches before you, uncertain but full of possibility. And with that, close your eyes and drift off to sleep, letting the echoes of Victorian London fade into dreams.